Hello and welcome to the Helping Friendly podcast on this Monday, July 18th, 2022, the 19th anniversary of my second fish show at Alpine Valley in East Troy, Wisconsin, where I witnessed one of the greatest download diseases I think that has ever been played, which went into the first catapult I've ever seen, and I would not see another catapult until Dick's 2021. It was a special night. It was a very special night.
Would you say that all of your gaps, outstanding gaps as a fish fan, have been closed by a show at Dick's? Like,
I would
have they
say,
been
yeah.
resolving all of the things that you've been looking for a great many years at that?
I would say most of them. Yeah, like I saw, like one thing I'd been chasing that I never thought I would ever get was a first set Harry Hood, and then Curveball happens, which I wished on no one. I want to be very clear. I wished on no one. But the band comes out at Dick's. I had to bring it up because it's relevant. The band comes out at Dick's and plays this very heavy, very emotive show. And what is the one song to play that is very heavy and very emotive? It's Harry Hood, of course. I would also say August 31st, 2012 was right around my 30th show. And if you go through my stats and you look at fish.net reviews, you could make a very, you could, you have, and you could make a very strong case. I did not see a good fish show until August 31st, 2012. I saw a lot of shows that are in the like 2 and 3.5 range. And somehow I kept going. I don't know what it was. I was chasing this like light out in the distance.
Oh yeah, because you started in 04, was it, or 03? You saw them in
03. 03.
Okay, so there was a chance there. You had a shot.
I had some good shows. 22003 I thought was a very good show. My first show.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Summer 03 had some stuff. 04, not as much. And then 3.0. There's a case to be made for 3.0, other than the loaded emotional factor of a lot of the first couple years, and then occasional highlights here and there being just kind of average good, as opposed
and
to
I saw
really
a lot
great.
of those. So
did we all.
So did we all. It was until I had to pass that threshold of seeing the Fuck Your Face show, and suddenly it was this. Every other show I saw seemed to be great. Maybe it was all them. Who knows? But we're not here to talk about my stats or my drive to see good fish, even in the face of reality that was 2.0 and early 3.0.
Yeah,
we are here
today.
To talk
about my stats.
We're here to talk about your stats. We're here because an excellent user named Wicked Monkey One, shout out, replied to our beck and call to the fan base last week when we said, hey, there's no fish show on a Sunday. We're not going to do a recap, but we're going to do a show. You tell us what you want us to talk about. We got some fantastic suggestions.
Yeah, I wanted to say that, like, the fact that we didn't choose your suggestion doesn't mean it was terrible. Doesn't mean it wasn't, but doesn't mean that it was.
Kevin Hogan. We actually thought about doing yours, Kevin Hogan. We really did.
Kicked it around.
We had suggestions for 7/21/97, 3/14/93, the idea of passing torches, Evil Fish, the Santana Tour, which we kind of talked about last week with Alex May. We also had suggestions for 7/10/2016, really kind of fascinating and interesting show to close out the first leg of the 2016 tour. History Mike song, the song Lotus, Segway Fest from 1993, as well as the evolution of how the band is discussed from pre-internet to today's social media and podcast world, something which we dedicated an episode of Undermine to. We ultimately decided.
Can I tell him?
Yeah, you can tell him.
Okay, we're going to talk about this record. It's called Beans. No, just kidding. We're not actually going to talk about that record. I don't know that it sounds like that because I haven't listened to it yet. I bought this on Saturday. It's a kind of a local to my area country group that I bought it because it's local. And I have no idea what it sounds like because I've been too busy listening to the Lemonwheel. which is our actual topic for today. Um, I'm going to put that on as soon as we're done, and I'm curious to hear how it sounds. Um, but one of the guitar players played with Roy Buchanan, so yeah,
Oh,
right on.
nice.
Yeah.
We decided to go with the Lemonwheel, as you just said. And it's funny when I think back now on our text exchange from yesterday when we were planning on what are we going to announce to the fans during our banger recap. Um, our initial agreement was that we would do the Segway Fest of 1993. And then we started looking
Yeah.
through it and we were kind of like, the Segway Fest is more of a 94 thing. There's some good ones, but we talked 5/8/93 back in May. And I'm sure we'll talk Roxy at some point.
I mean, we
Were
should.
going to
It's
do.
great.
We should. It's awesome. 30th
But
anniversary next year.
I think we both agreed, though. Like, I'm not sure you and I are on board for the thesis that the 93 Segway Fests, I just don't think there are as many as people think. There's like little things where they do a song and bounce in and out of a couple little things, but only a couple of them really go like set long. And
That, and also it feels to me like an exercise that they would. The natural ending point of the 93 Segway Fest was the Bomb Factory Tweezer in my mind. And that taught them that we don't need the songs anymore. Like we can
right.
do this if we take a song like Tweezer and we just jam it out. And granted, there were some Segway Fests throughout the remainder of the summer tour, but as they moved into the fall,
And they still happen.
that chunk of time became a 38-minute long jam.
There's one point that I was going to make that I think is a very interesting and good point that has been made on this podcast before. So I will credit Matt Dwyer for on his first appearance on HFPod in the way back times. We were talking about Tweezer. It was a Tweezer episode. It was actually a 2-part Tweezer episode, and he talked about
Such
that
a good
time
episode.
period. It is good. The 93 time frame was that Jamming for Fish had basically, if they came across a song as they jammed, they played the song. They couldn't leave a tease alone. And only as they developed as a jamming on stage group did they learn to leave the tease alone and continue pushing towards original new sounds, new music, which we started to hear more and more and more, as you say, in 94 and then 95 to the, RJ's great disgust, and then and then so forth. And now in 1998, we have the Lemonwheel. See how I did
the Lemonwheel. You did a great job. Savage 1005 also did that by saying we got a very large bomb into the show, brought it right up front at the wheel. That is one of those things you can only do at a festival.
Oh, God bless you.
You just get past you get in, you pass the security guards who are kind of just there to be like, you're okay, cool, go. They're not holding you up. Like you're walking into those
fifth
festival
one
grounds.
Is actually looking at stuff at those things,
right?
It's like,
and you get that in, and you run all the way up to the stage. What a move! So yes, we were going to do, and the point I was going to make.
Sorry.
No, you're okay. Is we were going to do the 93 Segway Fest, which would have been totally manageable, even though neither one of us were totally on board with the topic. It would have required us to listen to 2 sets of music and form some comparisons to, maybe 4, some comparisons to later day Fish. And instead we decided, you know what? We both love the Lemonwheel and it seems to be overlooked. Why don't each of us, starting yesterday afternoon, listen to about 13 and a half hours worth of music to ensure that we're fully prepared for this episode? So we did.
You're welcome.
I just finished. I
was like
yesterday,
pausing during meetings today and putting it back on. And
I cleaned out my garage yesterday, which was a great activity to listen to. Nice. Day 1 of the Lemonwheel, including the ambient jam, including the sound check from the day before, which we will talk about. And then today I listened all the way through to 816. So we have a lot of thoughts. We have a lot to get to. Before we get to it, we have three very, 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 very important pieces of business. The first of which is
we here at Osiris are powered by a few things: music, of course, but also coffee. And we're always drinking Passion House coffee. And we have our very own blend, Ocean of Osiris, which I have to tell you, I have right here. Look at that. Look at that. Mine just arrived today, and I haven't even opened the bag yet. I'm going to make some of this weekend. Visit, please, passionhousecoffee.com to get some of this and their other coffee today. I've been a Passion House drinker for a while. This is not by any stretch my first bag of Passion House.
So good.
Use code OSIRIS for free shipping on every order. And also, we have a contest that is running all summer long. For each Fish show, we'll be giving away bags of Ocean of Osiris coffee every time Fish plays an ocean song. Every time you hear an ocean song, whatever you think may be an ocean song, tag at OsirisPod on Twitter, tag at Passion House Coffee, and use the hashtag Ocean of Osiris, and we will select two winners at random each night if they play an ocean song. If we decide that you've picked a proper ocean song, I think we'll be kind of liberal about it, but I'm not in the deciding team, I will tell you. But check it out. Just make sure you tag OsirisPod, Passion House Coffee, hashtag Ocean of Osiris. Two winners every show, and we'll announce the winners on the HFPod that follows the next day. I think that's the plan, how it's been going. We didn't have a show last night, so no winners today. But next time, soon.
There could be winners on Wednesday. They got a show at the Man, and I'll tell you what, if you're at the show, you can still play along. This is not confined to those of us on the couch.
Although you got to use your phone during the show, and
it's never fun.
But if you're into it, free coffee.
Free coffee, great company, great stuff that they do. I also want to tell you guys about. We've been talking about this for weeks now, but the day is finally here. RJ is standing backstage right now, prepping for Osiris Live at the Ardmore Music Hall. We want to thank Tonewood Brewing and the Ardmore Music Hall for sponsoring this overall event. It begins tonight at 7 p.m. You can still head down to the Ardmore Music Hall. If you're in Philadelphia, you can still head down there to buy tickets, and you don't want to miss it. Why don't you want to miss it? Well, this event will be a combination of live music, conversation, and what I'm about to say, I do not mean to underscore, because I mean it in all caps, lots of jamming. We'll focus on amazing guitarists. Musical guests include Tom Hamilton, Chris Forsyth, and Daniel Donato, with the backing band featuring Andy Cush of Garcia Peoples, Ryan Jewell, and Ron Stabinsky of the Meat Puppets. Each musical guest will talk with RJ and then play a couple songs with the backing band. The night will conclude with a super jam featuring all of the musicians. Once again, we want to thank Tonewood Brewing and the Ardmore Music Hall. Visit osirispod.com/OsirisLive. You can still buy tickets there, or you can head down to the Ardmore Music Hall to buy your tickets as well. Amazing event. We got more on tap here this summer, but this is the one that kicks it all off. Very, very excited for this. Jonathan, before we jump into the show, can you tell us?
I just want to say,
go ahead.
About that. If you're in Philly, I don't know why you wouldn't be there tonight, because great music. Yes, I know you got two Fish shows the next couple nights. You can do it. You're all grown up. You know how to sleep. Get down there. I've seen all of these musicians play, except I've never seen Daniel Donato in person, but I did watch his Peach Fest set, and it was outstanding. The guy can play.
It was great.
The guy can really play. He's really good. So, you should be there.
You should be there. And we have one more. I do too. One more sponsor that we need to tell you about.
Sunset Lakes. I see. I blew it. I wasn't ready. I wasn't interrupting you with something, so I couldn't speak, fluidly. Sunset Lake CBD. That's who we're here to tell you about. Sunset Lake CBD's line of smokable hemp products for the old deadhead or young fish fan searching for the mellow body high. Smoking CBD has all the benefits of high THC cannabis without that paranoid and anxious side effects. They have 9 different strains from this year's harvest, and there is something for everyone. Hawaiian Haze is awesome for an outdoor show. The Cherry Abacus is best for the end of the night. All of the flower is grown, cured, and trimmed by Sunset Lake CBD farmers. And even better, Sunset Lake CBD's farm-to-table approach gets you great pricing on premium CBD flower by shipping directly from their farm to your door. Look, man, I'm going to keep this simple so we can get down to the meat of this show, but I dig it. I like to smoke. I can't be getting high all the time. I'm a family man.
No
I'm
way.
a working man. I got all this stuff, but
Exactly.
it really like sets me at ease, and it tastes great, and it's awesome. So I highly recommend it. You can check them out today at www.sunsetlakecbd.com. Use coupon code HFPod for 20% off all products. That's Sunset Lake CBD, farmer grown, farmer owned, Vermont grown.
I'm guessing the farmers grow it too.
It's not really in the tag, but they do grow it. That's how it happens.
Sunset Lake, man. We love it. We love all you guys, and we encourage everyone out there to check it out. All right.
Business time.
Cue Brian Eno ambient wash of sound. We have reached the end of the summer 1998 tour. The band has played an excellent show in Vernon Downs, New York. The only time that they would ever play there.
God,
Vernon down the house.
That show. You can't bring up that show. Let me tell you why you can't bring up that show. No, you
tell
can't.
me.
Because I skipped it and went to the Lemonwheel. So I'm sitting at the Lemonwheel the day after that show, and my friends roll in, having gone the long way around and taped that show, and they show up at this one at the lot, and they're like, "Man, it was amazing." Well, God damn it, I don't want to hear that. I want to hear that I made the right choice. So we pretend that shit didn't happen, even though it's.
I understand that. It's got a great ramble on into Slave to the Traffic Light, one of my favorite Fish jams of the summer. But we won't talk about that show anymore. That show happens on August 12th. The band then moves to Loring Air Force Base for the second of 3 festivals in Limestone, Maine. The first happened the year prior. The Great Went. Savage 1005 did Deer Creek to the Wheel. That is an awesome run. You got to see Rhinoceros. You got to see an amazing Ghost. You got to see an amazing Haley's, incredible Gumbo.
Terrapin Station. I mean, come on.
Terrapin Station.
All that stuff's good, but
Meriwether.
I will say I did go to Meriwether.
That's a great show. That was the first summer 98 show I ever heard. That was very...
Hey, me too.
It was just available constantly during that period, and when I first was getting to Fish in 01. That huge, massive Runaway Jim. We could go on. There's so much in this tour. I love this tour. This tour has my favorite tone that I've ever heard Trey play in. It's so
Talk
clear.
About that at length next summer on HFPod on tour. So we can look back at the 25th anniversary. But
the band appears here, though. They play The Great Went in Limestone. It seems to me, we talked about Sugarbush a couple weeks ago. It seems to me that somewhere in the mid-1990s, Fish decided that the best way to create the vibe that they were looking for from a concert standpoint was to recreate what they had at Ian's Farm, at Amy's Farm, Pete's Fabulous Fish Festival in the late 80s and early 90s. Sugarbush was first that, and then they kind of very quickly outgrew Sugarbush. They go to Plattsburgh for the Clifford Ball outside of Plattsburgh, New York. And then they realize, this is pretty far out there. Across the lake. This is pretty far out there. Like, if anyone's been to upstate New York, like really upstate New York, I'm not talking like just outside of New York, New York City.
Yeah, we don't mean Smaldeny.
It's rural. But they realize this is not as far away as we need to be. And so they go almost to the border with Canada. Like, as far away from Portland as I think New York City is from Portland. It's a far, far away from commerce.
Have you been there?
I have not, unfortunately.
So every time Fish played there, I went, and I live in Virginia, the northern portion of Virginia, though I try not to claim northern Virginia. And my preferred method of getting there would be to leave at night and leave at 8 p.m. We rush hour traffic's done. We get through all the major cities before, without traffic. We arrive at the state line of Maine, sunrise. Then you drive all damn day, and it's well in the afternoon when you arrive in the vicinity of Limestone, give or take traffic when you get up there. All day. That state is, somebody was just on the other day with us. That state is way bigger than you think.
Yeah, it is.
And you drive the length of it to get up there. But it's amazing. It's a beautiful state, super green. They have, everybody pretends they have moose. And you get all the way, you take the last exit before you get into Canada and just drive straight up Route 1. And you're up there. You've got some elevation, East Coast elevation. Let's recognize that. But still, you got some elevation. It's high country. They grow potatoes up there. And not much going on up there. It's great. And yeah, they had this old SAC Air Base. Guy I know used to work there. He worked there. He was in the military, and he was an MP at the time when they had a major UFO sighting that you could read about on the internet, and you should. Yeah, they thought the UFOs were attracted to the nuclear weapons that they had up there at the time. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, that guy is weird. But he's not the only one to talk about that UFO sighting. And it is just it's an old Air Force base. Seems like it'd be mundane, but worked beautifully. You camped in between the runways, parked on the runways, and at the end of the runways for the Went and Lemonwheel, big grass, sort of a bowlish amphitheater setup, and at the bottom, stage, concert. They had the radio station going, and everywhere you walked in the parking lot of the Lemonwheel, when there wasn't Fish on, you could either hear Fish radio or somebody was playing that damn Terrapin station again. I heard that all weekend long, over and over and over again. It was great.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking like not even 10 days since that happened. It had to still just be like
kind of
so massive. Yeah, a little bit of a big deal. Tell me, before we get into the shows here, and we have a lot of stuff to get into, but like I want to hear, what are some of your favorite memories of going up there? I mean, you've talked about like the remote aspect of it, like how beautiful the area is, but like waking up the morning of the first show of a festival in Limestone, what is that like from a fan perspective?
I mean, you're completely separated from everything. I mean, this is like cell phones existed, but I didn't have one then.
Yeah.
So of course you're cut off. It's rural camping. This is not like these days at a festival where, unless you drove your RV, you have nothing. And if you did drive an RV, you don't get hookups. It's none of that. A lot of my friends had microbuses. I had a tent. I think we had a minivan that we drove up in for this one, but we drove up with it full of people. So I had a tent, slept in my tent, and grasshoppers on the grass and people everywhere. And it was great. It's a little city. It's the biggest city in the state at the time. And
at that time, yeah.
It's I want to go back. Can you tell? Can you tell that I want to go?
I want to go.
Really
it is my dream to go to a Fish show there. I was not into Fish in the late 90s, so there was no way I was going. Bittersweet Motel, the documentary, was one of my first introductions to the band and to the scene. And of course, there's a ton of Went content. And I was like, oh my God, this is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. Like, how do I get to this? Well, the band's not playing right now. Okay. And then they announce details. Then they announced the IT Festival. I was 18 in Chicago, about to go off to college. A month later, it just wasn't in the cards for me to drive up to the northern part of Maine. But it is something we will talk about at some point, because I love it. And I think the way that they go back to this sacred ground and play an incredible festival there is amazing. But Before we jump into one more question for you. You and I have talked about this, but I think this is a good way to start this conversation. We both consider this to be an overlooked festival. If you take the entirety of all fish festivals that have happened, this one feels very overlooked in a lot of cases. What is your thought on why this festival is overlooked?
It's like the middle child. So, um, obviously, Clifford Ball is the first, right, of this kind of festival. But the Great Went is also a first. It's the first here at this location. It's a step bigger. And then this one is the kind of like they did Great Went again in many respects, logistical respects at least. Musically, it's quite different. They repeat songs or whatever, but so be it. And experience-wise, it was similar in many respects, but that's a pretty high bar to meet twice in a row, and I feel like they did. Mm. And then the next year they did Oswego, which at the time everybody talks about it as a fest now, but at the time they were like, we're not really doing a summer festival. We'll do this camp out here though. Okay, well everybody calls it a festival now. Fine. And because they were doing Big Cypress, which was the festival for 1999.
Yeah.
And obviously overshadows
Oswego
everything, towers above, if you will. It was the comeback. So it is not overlooked all that much. I think Festival 8 is often overlooked, mildly forgotten. I think that if they were to get their shit together and re-release the 3D movie, maybe just make it 2D. That would be fine. But release the footage.
That really came out at the time when like 3D was everything, and I don't feel like that's much.
I don't want 3D. I went and saw it in the theater. It was cool for what it was. Put it out in 2D. Let me see it again. I think that would probably raise the stock of that festival. That's kind of my rough festival recap. And then you have the Magna and the Supers and the curves and now it feels like they put a lot of the festival energy into Dick's. I mean, they're doing 4 nights this year.
Right.
They're going to be putting some dead people onto airplanes Monday morning. I'll be one of them.
I mean, you will. You're going to be coming out to Dick's for the first time. I can't wait. I agree with everything you said. I think the only thing I would add is, 1998 often feels overshadowed compared to 1997 in a lot of cases.
And 99, but for
and
different reasons.
Yeah. You have, the similarities of the style of music. They're playing in this very groove-oriented, funk-forward type of fashion. Anything can be jammed out. Setlist construction is mirrored in a lot of cases to what 1997 was, where, hey, if we're playing Gumbo as the second song of the set, you're not just getting Gumbo the first set, you're getting like a 13 to 17 minute long Gumbo to like really get you into the groove.
Darn.
And I think, right. And I think post Island Tour, it kind of gets overlooked in terms of the summer tour is structured very similarly to the summer tour from 97. The fall tour, it's a little bit early, but you have similar beats in terms of the west to east movement.
Summer tour also has the jukebox tour thing going that everybody remembers that, all the covers, and which is wonderful and kind of amazing. But I think I'm following you. Is it just maybe it's the even years thing that you've heard that?
That's theory, also right? Part of it. I think it's also like the Went features this like peak of that raw cow funk that would get sleek. It would be a little bit more sleek by the time they came back in the fall. It's a little bit more glossy around the edges, and that kind of glossiness moves its way into 1998, where it's a softer approach to funk. It's not so aggressive, so in your face. But like 1997, the Went sets really showcases this band that like kind of knew they were onto an evolutionary like moment in their career.
They're at a step.
Yeah, and we're forward with it. So all of this moves us to night one, but not night one, but night one, but not night one, but night
Night
one
zero.
because we're saying it's one. Night zero. 8/14/1998. The band comes on stage on a Friday night, a little after 11 p.m., to play a sound check, which is broadcast live on the Lemonwheel's official radio station, 88.9 FM, The Badger. This set, we'll talk about it briefly here because we listened to it. We were texting back and forth yesterday. Do we do the sound check? Do we not? Should we do the sound check?
Let me
Decided,
clarify for everybody. No, it was I started with the sound check, and I started texting you about the sound check, and you're like, "Oh, I started with the next day." And I was like, "Dude, you got to listen to the sound check.
Got to go back." Okay, so I went back. So I go back. This begins with just like the grooviest funk jam, which turns into the most beautiful ambient jam until the next night's ambient jam. It is just stunning out the gates how locked in they are right away playing at this set. What did you think of this set overall, and kind of what were your highlights?
First of all, I will say this is one of those things because it's the sound check. I experienced it in the camping area, and that wonderful thing of everybody.
So were you in already when this happened?
Yeah, we were in. Almost
Okay.
everybody had their radios tuned to this, so everywhere you went, you were hearing it. And then you could, if you got close to the festival, you could hear it coming over, but it was everywhere. It was kind of great. And these jams are amazing. I was telling you earlier, I think that a case could be made for a 2 LP set that includes the two big jams from the sound check and the ambient set as the second LP. One jam on each side and the ambient set split on one LP. And I think it would be an amazing listen. The jams are both really good, extensive, but all the songs are good too. It's really cool. Back at the Chicken Shack was kind of in the rotation. She Got the Katie though coming back there.
Just come back, yeah.
Yeah, and then the absolute absurdity of I Gave My Love a Cherry. It's funny because it's not really until then that you hear a little banter about like, turning up the this and the hearing this in the monitors. It's not till the end of the sound check that they start doing sound check things. But it's great. I mean, they knew what they were doing. It was for us, and it was delightful.
This I Gave My Love a Cherry was I love these jams, and I'm so here for soundcheck jams. I was thinking about it listening to the Clifford Ball soundcheck jam a couple of weeks ago. Like, there's a moment in that jam where you hear the band playing the type of music that they will play 12 months later in August of 1997, but you're hearing them play it without the restraints of having to play a concert. And there's that sense in soundcheck jams of the band almost playing 6 to 12 months ahead of where they are on stage because they don't have to play a show for anyone. And while this soundcheck sounds a part of 1998 to me, it also has I Gave My Love a Cherry, which is the idea that you're hearing this on the radio, potentially in traffic, driving through
so weird
backwoods, 2-lane highways, or you're walking up and down this Air Force Base tarmac where there were UFO sightings half a century earlier, if not more recent. Like, and that the theremin is going. It just, I think I texted you, like, Fish sometimes seem so advanced, but they also sometimes, and I think perhaps one of my favorite things about them is when they play old school Americana music and they showcase that it's not just three chords. It's actually like some of the weirdest music that's ever been made. And when you go in the outskirts of America and you think about like the late 19th century, the early 20th century, and like what was happening creatively and the music that like became jug bands and became folk music and is like passed down today, this song is right there in that sort of standpoint that Fish is like uncovering for the fan base.
And then you have Fishman's verse, which is a little blues, so I won't quote it, but Brian remembers.
Yeah. I remember. I love how before that verse, Trey says, "Fish, it's now your turn to sing a verse because we've all sung the song and now you need to add something inappropriate.
Yeah, well,
So
he
this
knows what's coming.
he knows what's coming. This is like an hour and a half long set that I would just encourage. It's all soundboard quality because it's a sound check. It's all lifted from the soundboard. This to me
Well,
is
I was going to say it's the FM,
it's the
which
FM.
is
Sorry, you're right. You're
something
right.
I want to make a point about later, but we'll
Yes.
get to that.
Thank you for that clarification. But it's great to me to think that like this starts around, let's call it 11:15, and the band walks off stage just before 1:00 in the morning, and you're now ready. Like that night zero at a festival, the whole energy isn't there, but the like Christmas Eve type of energy is there.
The energy's there. People are getting ready.
They haven't played a show yet, but like it's coming. It's coming. So, do you have anything else you want to say about the soundtrack, or should we move on?
No, I want to get into this. I want to get into the next day.
Let's do this because we got a lot. We got 7 actually whole sets of music to diverge into. It's amazing. Set 1 of the festival. It's interesting to me just off the bat. Trey at the end of the first set of The Great Went chastises his bandmates, saying like, we played a bad set, we've been playing so loose all summer, like we're here at the festival, we don't have to be all under this pressure. And he quotes in that set that they didn't have a chance to do a sound check, so part of this set is a sound check. There's no sound check in this first set at the Lemonwheel. This is a full-on set long Mike's Groove with jams, with a few rarities.
Fire to spare.
It's a really interesting, fluid first set. What are your thoughts on it overall?
Well, first of all, it's a killer set. I was at the time disappointed when they went great mics into simple. Not a fan of that at the time.
Yeah,
I'm more or less over it, but apparently not because I keep bringing it up. No hydrogen, but that's okay. Simple was nice. Beauty of My Dreams, nice. It's all Split Open and Melt was kind of intense. Poor Heart's fine, but the MoMA dance, great dance party. So you were talking about you were cleaning your garage. I was cooking in the kitchen all afternoon yesterday, so I was dancing all over the kitchen during the MoMA dance. And this Divided Sky is terrific. It's a jam chart version.
It is.
Which I didn't know when I was listening to it, but I was thinking, this one's so good, it really ought to be. And it really just, like, they hit the composed bits well, but then they stretch the right other bits in a way that just, I was having an ecstatic moment listening to it yesterday, and I highly recommend it. If you don't have time to listen to all these sets, that's one of the highlights you really ought to go to. And it is probably my highlight of this set, along with the cities into Weekapaug. And Trey pausing to shout out the Portalet Pagoda and other sites in the Garden of, Delights?
Infinite Pleasantries.
Was out there. Yeah, Infinite Pleasantries, yeah.
Yeah, the jam chart notes on this Divided Sky are musically 1998 falls somewhere between the crisp, hard-rocking sound of the mid-90s and the subtle, layered grooves of 1999 and 2000. This excellent version provides a glimpse of both, and I think that's perfect. There's a motion and there's a moment you will have with this version of Divided Sky that also, like, I don't know what was the weather like at this festival. I mean, is this being played? This is like mid-afternoon when this set is happening. Do you recall?
I remember the weather
nice
being good. Yeah, I remember. I remember sunshine. Yeah, I remember the weather being good because of actions I took later on. I probably wouldn't have had the weather not been good. So I think conditions were what we like to say ideal.
Understood. And yeah, the cities, it gets into such a groove, and it's not as aggressive or as long as the 731-98 version was from Columbus, but it's definitely worth your time, your ears. When Trey says we're gonna stop the music and see if we can make the people at the top of the Ferris wheel sick, that prankster side, but like also the arrogance of knowing how like how good you're playing right now in like such a groove oriented standpoint, where they can basically just be like on a dime, boom, and all you hear is sirens. And it's just like you feel uneven at that moment immediately, and then they come back into the groove and go into Weekapog, which has this like build up, this double time build up towards the end. It's amazing. I think like, this first set, I was reading some reviews about it on Fishnet this morning. I don't think it's like the greatest set list on paper, but I also think it works really well in the sense of like a Mike's Groove is a great way to structure an entire show. And all of these songs kind of fit that. I think about the first set from 8/22/15 at Magnaball, where it just fits that set. It fits the vibe. You're outside, it's sunny. I remember having a couple really nice beers with me, and you're just hanging out listening to some Fish. Like it's a perfect way to hang out outside listening to this stuff.
Look, it was a dancey set. Again,
Dancing.
everybody was getting settled. This is the first set, so everybody's finding their spots. Many of which we'll come back to at the same spot for the rest of the thing. And there's a ton more music ahead. So if they're gonna play Poor Heart and Beauty in My Dreams, well, it's 1998. They're gonna do that. They're gonna play Water in the Sky, and they're all gonna be good. So I don't know. I guess people can complain. They will about everything. I think it's pretty solid opening set.
Well, let's jump into the second set. So sets 2 and 3 are at night. We get the evening set and then the nighttime set before we get to set 4.
I feel like set 2 started around the time that set 1 would start at a normal show. So it wasn't dark yet. I don't have a whole lot of like that kind of visual memory of this stuff because of reasons, but I do remember the before this set. And then
that's how I remember. The only festivals I've been to were Coventry and Magnaball. And my memory of the 3 Magnaball was great. My memory of the 3 set shows, because they have one 3-set show now at festivals. Coventry had 2 3-set shows, was that similar to what you're saying, that it was still light out, but like the sun had gone down, but there was enough light coming off the horizon that like for the first 3 songs of the second set, things were getting darker.
Well, remember also though, we are way north, so the sun stays up later. Anyways, so they come out and basically throw down. Yeah, I'm with you, Ben. He misses festivals. So do I.
I miss them.
Wedge, great. Good Reba.
Limestone.
But yeah, to me, it's this gumbo. You talked about it earlier, right? This gumbo has a great jam, Tweezer reprise-ish jam in this gumbo. Like they're throwing down, and then you can hear it. And we knew that it was a bust out when it happened. We hear them grind into sanity, and yes, this is
first
we were
since Halloween '96,
dancing my face off up into that sanity. We celebrated, and then the tweezer happens, and it's a great tweezer. It's not a 30-minute banger or anything like that. It's not the kind of thing I was looking for 3 years earlier, but I really like this tweezer, and I remember at the time I really liked this tweezer, and needed the horse silent by the time we got him. I was ready for it.
Needed it. Yeah. This set flows in a really interesting manner to me. We'll talk about this when we get to the next day. Like, I feel like these 2-second sets, they feel so extended. Like there's a lot of music packed in here. I kind of feel like each of these second sets is longer than a normal second set would be, and they're kind of taking advantage of the fact that there's almost no curfew, and there's the ability to kind of stretch their legs, because you get like a 16-minute Reba, a 13-minute Gumbo, a 16-minute Tweezer, and then you get Slave to the Traffic Light, which I think is around 12 minutes towards the end.
Yeah, this set is 85 minutes.
85 minutes. Okay, so it's like a first set length for a second set.
The next day's set 2 is 102 minutes.
Wow. Okay, that tells us something.
So that one runs a little long.
It's great. That one runs long. I kind of felt like when they started Chalk Dust, I was like, okay, this is probably the end of the set. And I hadn't really gone back. I wasn't looking at the set list as I was listening to this. The Slave to the Traffic Light to end this out is just gorgeous. It kind of, it reminds me of the Divided Sky, where the band is still at a point at this point in time where songs like Divided Sky and Slave to the Traffic Light have not, they've gotten eclipsed in a sense by their newer material, that's standout material. You're Down with Diseases, Tweezer is not new at this point in time, but it's newer than these old classics. But like they're putting a lot of emotion into songs like Divided Sky and Slave to the Traffic Light. Almost as, I think that this is a pretty natural thing for them at this point in time where they could just play these songs out with so much emotion. But it reminds me of like 1994 Fish, where when you saw a 94 Fish show, those shows were defined by how great the classics were. Whereas now you could hear a okay Slave, but the goal is to hear like a 20-minute No Man in No Man's Land. Like that's the thing that people are going to take away from the show. And to hear them in a festival really blow these out songs.
Close a set with Slave. It's the thing. It reaches into you. And plus, a lot of people had spent a little time in traffic the previous day. So
it's very fitting.
They were probably kind of thinking about that and glad that they were no longer in traffic.
This show I'm just looking at has a 9.6 show gap on it, which is really only because of the Sanity, which is 140 show gap between performances. You're not hearing a ton of rarities. Like Fish was in kind of a pretty tight rotation in summer 98, and it almost doesn't matter because all these songs
everything's good.
Well. Yeah, everything's good. They know what they're playing well. Anything else you want to say about set 2, or should we jump into the third? Let's do it.
Jump in.
So the third set, it opens. This is a very interesting set to me, and I think that this kind of defines in some cases why this festival may be overlooked. This feels like a very subtle third set, whereas the year earlier, the Halley's Comet, the Cities, the Llama, it was all just like so in your face. This is NICU, David Bowie, which we're going to put a pin in because we're going to talk at length about this David Bowie. Strange Design, Limb by Limb, Brian and Robert, Loving Cup. It's very mellow. It's very low key. It's very much of like, to me, the band preparing themselves for the fourth set and kind of getting themselves in a mindset of, okay, how do we take quiet songs and really make them stick? And so you get this run of Strange Design, Limb by Limb, Brian and Robert that's very, very quiet, very subdued, which I'm sure led to some complaints from the fan base. I'm sure.
Fuck them. I didn't hear about it. And I still won't.
I won't listen.
Keep it to yourself. Yeah, so again, saving David Bowie. You're not wrong. I think Strange Design comes beautifully after Bowie finishes.
Completely agree.
It's great placement. Limb by Limb, you think on paper that we're getting a real rev up, but this Limb by Limb actually doesn't have that kind of nature to it. It's got the usual kind of limb by limb in the main structure, but then it's got some chill. It's got that, as you were saying, it's got that ambient charge to it. And then goes into Brian Robert, which is that's what literally about ambient music, and then a little rock and roll to wrap it up, Love and Cup. And then they come back pretty hard for the encore. And I will point out to anybody who is checking out the show on like re-listen, make sure you sequence this stuff right. The encore happened, then the fourth set. Re-listen doesn't lay it out that way because it's just a dumb computer. So
they have programmed that the encore comes after the set 4, yeah. Which changes the dynamics of how you listen to the show.
Yeah, don't listen to it.
This is one of my this Limb by Limb was quite a surprise to me because I don't know the last time I listened to this specific version. I'm a
It's cool, right?
fiend for Limb by Limbs, and yeah, it's like you said, it doesn't peak. It kind of goes off course in a way that you're not expecting without going like in this full new jamming territory. And when it fades into Brian and Robert, it really sounds a lot like those Europe 98 versions where Trey gets the feedback going on his guitar. And out of that feedback, Page starts on the Rhodes. That sound to me, like that is them nailing Brian Eno and Robert Fripp, the goal of what they're going for with that song. And it's actually the first Fish song I ever heard. Brian and Robert.
This explains a lot.
A lot. I was huge into music. I was listening to the Dave Matthews Band a lot, and my mom for I think my birthday.
Say, I was huge into music. I listened to Dave Matthews Band a lot.
That's just a part of it. But like my point in that
trope right there. Sorry.
Please. My point in getting that way is my mom for my birthday in 2001 bought me Bittersweet Motel, and she was like, I don't know if you know this band, but I think you would like it. And I thank her always for completely changing the trajectory of my entire life because I put it in, and that opening segment of them playing Brian and Robert and like these normal dudes on a bus hanging out in Europe, I was like, this is my band. Like, that's it. Why is this the first band I've been turned on to that just looks like that and acts like that? So anyway, David Bowie. Which we're going to say first and foremost before we get to David Bowie. We know a couple of you guys at Fish.net, okay? You know us. We're good people. You're good people. We understand that mistakes are made. This David Bowie should be a jam chart. I'm happy to write it. It should be a jam chart.
Yes. I mean, I texted Brian. I was like, did you know this is not in the jam chart? It's 24 minutes long, as any rational person would track it, 24 or so minutes long. 8 minutes is the intro. I'm sorry. Like, you can't just call that standard if the intro is 8 minutes long. And it is ambient space. The rest of the Bowie is fairly type 1. Great. I really like it. It's got what they label some Mission Impossible theme teases. Cool. That's old school. It's like 94. Yeah. But the intro is the story here. And it's freaking beautiful, actually. It's really, and it is a distinct tease of what we would get later on that night. I don't remember it from the night, but I've listened to it many times, and it's good. It needs to be on the list.
I was listening to it yesterday, and I think the thing I love about it is the intro, like we were talking about with the Limb by Limb, Brian and Robert, the intro feels like a deliberate, how do we keep this audience captivated while playing deliberately quiet music? But then when you get into the actual song portion, and the intro I find just fascinating, but when you get to the actual song portion, you're suddenly in a place where they're just in no rush to get to the peak. And so while it doesn't do what a lot of Bowie's did in 95 and in 97, where it goes completely off track and we're nowhere near home, and somehow they figure out a way back to pop, it doesn't do that at all.
No.
It stays within the Bowie, like it's like purple lights and just this like purple mood of like the band at night just jamming. And I kind of like that a lot. I feel like I don't need them to go off course. I think that the intro blows out the idea of what a Bowie intro could be. And then the song itself shows you what a slow, low-key version of David Bowie could be. It's amazing stuff. I'm super into it. Highly recommend people check it out. Encore, we get a really good Haley's, we get Cavern, and we get a Rockin' Tweezer reprise. And at the end of Tweezer reprise, Trey talks to the crowd about, he gets all soft and all emotional, says, look, we create something really special, you and us. You may not think it, but you're as huge a part of it as we are. We tried to do this last year. It worked out. It was really cool. We made this big painting together. We burnt it all down. It was awesome. This year, you made us candles, and we're going to play music for you in the style of Brian Eno, which we've been trying to do for months now, which we've been working at. There's so many great segments of music that are in the Eno style throughout Summer Tour. What did you do following the encore? Do you remember what you did following the encore before this set?
I don't remember what I did in the gap, but I know that we were at our spot or a spot for set 4 when it began. So I think we may have just hung out, wandered a little bit, but in little individual missions, but we didn't leave the festival ground area. And so when the ambient jam started, we stood there a little bit, and then we sat down, and then we laid down, did not sleep. About halfway through, though, we got up and we wandered out listening. You could hear it quite well. And then again, we had that experience where you could hear everywhere you went. So we walk out, the delay towers are behind us, feeding it to us, and then you come upon a radio here and a radio there. And somebody asked, was Slim a part of this story? Yeah, my dude Slim was there. And my buddy Marty was there, Barnesy. Yeah, we had a whole crew. It was great. And we were, it was like walking on another planet, little space adventure, just kind of bounding along, hearing this kind of subtle, beautiful music everywhere you went. And then, oops, you might bump into the disco bus. That's different. Let's go over here. Come back to that. Okay, we're here in the fish again. It was great, man. I listened to this again today, and it is not party music.
No.
But it's beautiful. It's outstanding.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite pieces of music the band has ever played, regardless year, era. It's right in line with what I love to listen to in my spare time. I listen to a ton of ambient music. Brian Eno's there for me with Fish, with Garcia, with Dylan, with Neil Young is like my favorite artist of all time. To me, the ambition of playing this and coming out and telling your fan base, you think about the Storage Jam, you think about the Tower Jam, you think about the Drive-In Jam. They didn't come out and say we're going to do this. They were very deliberative. This is what we're attempting to do, and we want you to know this. And this is what this is going to sound like, at least as we conceive of it right now. With those other jams, they were just kind of like, hey, we're going to pop up out of nowhere and play a surprise late night set, and it's going to get really dark and really weird and really chaotic, because that's kind of what happens when we don't have like a home base that we need to get to musically. We can just go out and explore. This, to remain in the ambient style and to dedicate themselves to that, feels really risky, because not all Fish Jams stay in an ambient space. Not all Fish Jams stay in one musical space. And I think what's really remarkable about this set is they don't stay in like this very specific ambient zone and just let it slowly build like a William Basinski type of session. It works like a lot of Brian Eno from the 1970s, where you have these passages of really beautiful silence and then a moment of inspiration that slowly percolates and changes it. And by the time you get to the end of whatever they've changed, they may have gotten into some heavier territory, but they're back in this kind of beautiful, blissful space. And so it sounds like Fish, but it also sounds like Fish emulating other music, which turns it into this stew that I can't get enough of.
There's a passage in here that reminds me a little bit of like the end groove on Free, but take all of the like punctuation out of it. It just kind of rolls in that little boom boom kind of moment that you hear at the end of Free, without any of the hits, if you will, any of the real percussive tone. I think you describe it well. And I will say, I like the idea that they did this so much more than the disco tent from the year before. Primarily because the disco tent is it's exclusionary, frankly.
Mm,
Like if you didn't know, you didn't know. If you weren't
right.
in there, you weren't in there. Tower Jam worked because you could see it and hear it from everywhere if you were awake. And if you weren't awake, I mean, come on, guys, you could see that they were doing something on the tower. Here they announce it from the stage, they play it. Flatbed Jam, I think, is a gorgeous idea. It should never be matched or attempted. I think that was outstanding. They took the show to you. Um, Again, if you slept and missed it, I'm sorry. But here, yeah, they organized it, they planned it, they did it on the stage, and it was cool. It's fucking really cool.
One thing the Fish has done in recent years that I really appreciate is the dinner movie sets when they've played their festival sets. They've done the same vibe with the late night
Yeah.
sets where back I think it was like the fifth dinner movie. We're talking spring 2020. The only thing keeping me sane and happy was Tuesday night dinner movies because it was the one routine that we had during that period. And they played Magna Ball Day 2, and it was just incredible to hear those three sets of music and watch it all again. That was one of my favorite days I've ever lived. And I remember the set ending, and people on Twitter were now talking like 12 o'clock, 12:30 on the East Coast, whenever that ended, being like, are they going to do the drive-in jam? And you got the late night crew, and then suddenly someone sends out the link of, oh my God, they're doing it on YouTube. And I remember going over to it and being able to enjoy that. And they did the same thing with the flatbed jam after they played night one of
Yep.
the Clifford Ball. And this is really something I'd love to experience if they ever want to consider releasing this.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
maybe
think that this is
next year for the 25th anniversary after they
do
release
Went
the
this
Great
year.
Went this year for the
Lemonwheel
25th
next year.
anniversary. Ready to
Let's do
pre-order
this.
right now.
I gotta right now. Just take my money, guys. I gotta just highlight this. The Incredible Perp, great friend of the pod. I missed the disco
Yeah.
set, but I got up and got naked in the morning. That's a
Ah,
good
yes,
move
for the photo. Yes, there
for
were
the
so many
photo.
naked people that morning. It was something.
Should we move on to the final day of Lemonwheel?
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it.
An hour into this podcast, we were going to somehow tackle the final 3-set show. We're just going to do it. We're jamming up here, man.
I'm here for it.
So everybody goes to bed probably at a fairly reasonable hour, I'm guessing, because like we're not waiting until 1 o'clock in the morning.
A lot of people went to bed.
Yeah. Was the concert ground pretty spare, like sparse when they, or like was the fact that they announced that they were coming back on stage?
People were there.
Helpful
Yeah,
to keep people there.
It was probably a little. Yeah, surely there were people who weren't in, but the fact that you could hear it at the car helped
out.
That sort of thing. But that just means you were able to kind of live your festival life. You didn't have to, you weren't chained to the schedule. You could hear it. You could run in, you run back, get some food between sets and then run back in. And, and it wasn't, your time wasn't critical. And I got to say, when we were heading up to Curveball before it was canceled, we were so thrilled to get the news they were going to put the thing on terrestrial radio and not rely exclusively on space radio for the festival sets because, real radio has the quality of being able to be picked up by a $10 battery powered something or other. Every car can get it. Like, don't make me go satellite for this kind of stuff. It changes the environment.
I agree.
It's an important factor. Sorry.
I get it. No, I get what you're saying. There's something about radio that is so fascinating in that standpoint, and Fish hits it in these festivals. So they come out for the second night, and I love how we open with Ginseng Sullivan, which feels to me like a callback to the second day of the Clifford Ball when they opened the old home place, like a little bit of bluegrass to get you going on a Sunday morning. To me, this first set, it reminds me a lot of the first set from the previous show. I think the only difference is you don't have mics and Wikipog on either end of it. But it's kind of just like, it's a hodgepodge of songs. It works really well in the daytime. The segment that really got me, I love, of course, the bathtub gin into Rift. It's a very, very seamless segue. It's a great transition. but the Yamar in the ACDC bag into Frankie says, that's it for me. What about you?
Well, I mean, I could have told everybody that that was it for you. I mean, I could have predicted that. Um, yeah, I love Ginseng Sullivan. I love the fish bluegrass. I think that's a great opener. The gin's really good. It's not the gin they played the year before. It doesn't have to be because they did it the year before.
Right.
The transition to Rift is really great. Strong punch you in the eye. Little feature bit for with Long Boy, get Page's feature rather. Yamar, you get a little Mike featured in both of those really. Um, ACDC bag gets the Brock. Frankie says, calls back to, again, that ambient sound that we are living for here at the end of summer 98. Birds of a Feather is a straight up ripper. This
It
Birds of a
is.
Feather is outstanding. And I think it is my highlight. Might be. I don't know. I like the set. It's a good set. That Birds of a Feather is just killer. Strong Gaiuti, good possum. They jam charted this possum. Let's see what they have to say about it. They call it an extended jam, vintage 98 fish sound with technically astute but patient playing, contributions by all band members, none of the frenetic guitar-dominated fury of 92 and 95, but also lacking any real improvisational elements. I'm sorry, did they say also lacking any real improvisational elements? And yet they put it in the jam chart and it's 15 minutes long. That's weird. Um, but David Bowie's not.
Right.
Sorry.
Sometimes the contradictions of this free volunteer fan site.
Hey, I'm not complaining. I'm just commenting.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think like this set to me, it's a festival first set. You know what
It's
I
a
mean?
good
Like
set.
it gives you a sample of where the band is at in a lot of different cases. It's fun. It keeps you entertained, and it does a good job of by the time Possum ends, you're like, cool. I didn't exude an insane amount of energy, and now I'm ready for
A
the final
burrito
two sets of the run. A burrito and the
before
final
the
two
final
sets
two
of the run.
sets of the run. Yeah.
There it is. There it is.
And you had
Because
time. You got time for that.
I don't know if you remember this. Like I know at Magnaball when they did the 3 set show, they did the first set started at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and went 3 to 5, and then they had a big gap. They didn't come back on stage until about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. Do you remember if
Yeah,
that
like
was the same
normal
thing here, or
first
if it
set
was?
time. I think it was the same here. Because
No,
by the end of the night, it was not 12 or whatever when all
right.
ended, when the encore was over. It wasn't that late. So I think that's about right. Um, maybe I don't know. There was a good hour, probably 2 hours in between the sets, but I couldn't tell you like what time it was. Somebody
Right.
else wrote that down. But but we were having a very good time, and we're very excited. But I'm pretty sure this was the one where we ran out, got some dinner, and came on back.
Came back, got ready. You get ready for,
The
personally
stuff.
speaking, this is my favorite set of the entire festival. Um, if you don't count the ambient set, which I kind of think of as its own separate thing. This set, you said it was 102 minutes long. It features one kind of initial, very strong jam segment that flows from Down Disease into Piper into Ghost into Fluffhead. Has a bit of a breather in Circus and Velvet Sea. You get the surprise, Hold Your Head Up, Sexual Healing, Hold Your Head Up. And then we got to close it out. We can't close it out with Hold Your Head Up, Run Like an Antelope. And a really fun Run Like an Antelope. Talk to me about this Disease, Piper, Ghost, Fluffhead. What are your thoughts about this segment?
Well, the disease is great, right? It is. It's almost 20 minutes. Like if I think when I mentioned the 2 LP set to you, I mentioned to you this before we started recording, that I would make a third LP, and this disease would go on one side, um, and the Ghost would go on the other, but that would leave out the Piper.
And you need the Piper.
I think you need the Piper, and one of the things
You
I
do.
want to point out about this Piper is that this right here is a proper slow build Piper. You are several minutes into this piper before it really starts to do the accelerando. They keep it nice and slow, and it's terrific as it should be. It's not other in other ways. It's not an especially remarkable piper, but it's a good piper, and it's a pretty much a package deal with this Down with Disease, making that a good 30 minutes to start off your set.
And it just like it showcases this what we were talking about at the top, like the groove, the ambient nature, the kind of soft around the edges aspect of Fish's playing in 1998 that contrasted with 1997's just like very aggressive. We're changing everything up and you'd better deal with it. This is a little bit more mellow. and dealing with it is a good thing. But this is a bit more mellow. This is a bit more accessible in some cases. It foreshadows the dark grooves that are going to happen in fall of 1999. I would even argue aspects of this festival foreshadow the darkness of the 2.0 era, where the band is just going to be kind of immersed in the underworld musically in a lot of cases, where like the bright trilling peaks of the early 90s have given way to what can we explore underneath in the kind of the wee hours of the evening. And this Disease Piper Ghost, and then you had the Fluffhead there, just kind of, that's it for me. Like that showcases where the band was going and where they were at. To me, this whole set is all about and will forever be about the Ghost. I think that this is one of the best versions of Ghost that's ever been played. The riff, I want to give a big shout out to my very close friend John McGar, who pushed this Ghost on me. I remember the first time he asked me if I'd listen to it, I was kind of like, it's good. And he was like, no. If you really, really listen to it, he was like, it's one of the most unique riffs you'll ever hear Trey discover. So, okay, I'll go back and check it out. There's a riff. It emerges around like 7, 8, 9 minutes into the jam. I don't know the exact timestamp, but you'll know it when you hear it. It's a riff that has absolutely no business being repeated the first time you play it. It doesn't flow properly. You hear Trey hit like 4 or 5 different strings and stretch across what feels like 8 or 9 different guitar frets. Like it's a riff that I have no idea how he discovered. And yet he repeats it over and over again. And it just blows me away every time I hear it. It's such a creative moment in the overall set and adds something to this Ghost that, it's a really special version. I'm super into it. I love how it speaks to everything we've talked about where the band was at this point in time. And I love how it speaks to kind of the subtle nature of what made Fish really special in 1998 that doesn't get posterized in the way that like the aggressive Ghosts of the Fall tour do.
Yeah, no, we were talking about this Ghost after. We were talking about this Ghost on the way home. It was a moment. And I think the fact that they follow it with Fluffhead, it really reminds me, it's funny that we're doing this today, reminds me very much of the way Fluffhead followed the Down with Disease, What's the Use the other night. Which is to say, we come out of this long improvisatory passage, we've done subtle, we've done weird, now we're going to lay into this high energy composed piece. And you're going to fucking love it. And we did. We did. Because it's Fluffhead. Of course we loved it. And they, played it really well, of course. 1998. And then they get us the kind of double shot ballad situation. Circus Comes to Town, which is more torch song ballad. And then Waiting in the Velvet Sea, which is weepy ballad. And then, Fishman wants to bring the love. A little sexual healing. That's sweet.
That's great.
And then we rage with Antelope. Ha! I love this band.
And Antelope's got the sexual healing riff in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a raging version of Antelope that closes down what I think is just an incredibly strong set, 100 minutes long. Yeah, it's interesting the point you make about Fluffhead. I think about that often, that like that song, it has such a weightiness to like how we listen to Fish at this point in our lives, because of Hampton, because of they didn't play it at all in 2.0, and because of moments like this where like Fluffhead is kind of, it was composed, but they took 5 different whatever songs that were played
Cobbled together is an
on their own,
arguable stance.
just hammered them together and said, "You guys all go together now." And it's kind of one of those songs that like showcase that initial ambition of Fish that would be replaced in the late 90s by, okay, now we've written songs together over time and we've really constructed these web of songs. How do we write songs in the moment that are just as, not necessarily complex, but just as forward thinking as what we wrote in a composed standpoint. So it's cool to have it be there as like the
energy.
Yeah. They come out then for the final set of the overall run.
At this moment,
yes.
That's 2 for 2 for Sabotage.
Wow. That's incredible.
I mean, I figured it was a one shot when I saw it to begin with. And to get it the second one here, I was like, holy shit. And I listened to this so loud today because it's the only way to listen to Fish playing Sabotage. Is it perfect? Beastie Boys perfect? No, but they commit hard. They're doing the voice. Trey's got a guitar in a different tuning. I mean, it's immense.
And Fish playing Sabotage in 1998 is very different from Fish playing Sabotage in the 2010s. Like the Beastie Boys released Hello Nasty in 1998. They're still a very relevant current band, and Sabotage was, anyone who was watching MTV in the mid 1990s, Sabotage was on constantly.
They're contemporaries to the Beastie Boys. Whereas, unfortunately, the Beastie Boys as a group aren't around anymore. If Fish comes out and plays it now, it is more looking backward rather than looking across at a completely different scene. So it was awesome. It was awesome when they played it then. It kicks ass on tape now. And then 2001.
And then 2001, which...
Now we're on our way.
2001 feels in a lot of cases, it's like the song of Summer 98. You've got that great version from The Gorge. You got a number of other great versions throughout the tour. But this is like, for it all to peak here at the Lemonwheel with a 16-minute version in absolutely no hurry. Just, it's the third set. I think that this third set works a little bit better, I would say, than the third set from the previous night, just as like a complete piece. I like both of these third sets, but like this one, the Sabotage 2001 Wilson, you get Mango, you get Character Zero, Bittersweet Motel, and you get the first While My Guitar Gently Weeps in 103 shows. It just kind of, it works as a set that like throws you out into the end of the festival in a really cool way.
I'm going to tell you why. Pressure's off.
No pressure.
Set 3, the night before, they're looking ahead to the ambient set. They're tinkering with those ideas. They're preparing those ideas. They're... what Willie thinks that pre-2001, 2001 hits different. Okay, fair. But this is the big thing's done. The special thing's done. Now it's just, yes, there is a
show
closing thing in the encore yet to come, but that's nothing. Like, yes, they hope the gag goes well, but that's not even on them. They're just playing the music, right? Other people have to make the thing, They're just there to play. And so they get into 2001. Sabotage is over. Sabotage is fun. 2001, they spread it out. Fishnet Notes teases of Cross-Eyed, Super Bad. James Brown, Super Bad teases. It's awesome. It's just awesome. Wilson is a blast. It's always fun, particularly in the latter half. Ever since the first like MSG, right? Wilson is fun. Wilson is big crowd.
This version gets stretched out a little bit. It's nice.
Yeah, big crowd shouting it back to him is always good. Character Zero again. Oh, shouting it out. Yes, people were sick of Character Zero in this era. Anybody you talk to who was on tour, whatever, in 97, 98, probably rolled their eyes at Character Zero for many years after because they played it a lot. Well, you know why they played it a lot? Because it rips.
It fucking rips.
It's a rockin' closer. I, for better or worse, wasn't seeing a million shows in that era, so it was, I always enjoyed it. Bittersweet Motel is gorgeous. While my guitar gently weeps, come on.
Big bust up. 103 shows, first since Stuttgart, 1997. Yeah, this set, like, you get a little bit of everything. And I think the clear highlight to me is the Sabotage 2001 Wilson, but I really enjoyed listening to all of this. The band then comes out for the encore, and one of the most emotional moments of the previous year's festival, The Great Went, was the Harry Hood with the first glow stick war, where Trey famously at the end,
go get more of those things.
Go get more of those things. They're amazing. Be careful what you wish for. It's a very mid-90s environmental comment where, hey, we love the environment, but let's throw a bunch of plastic goop up in the air and it looks pretty.
It did look cool.
It looks cool every time it happens, man. The tweezer from Magnaball, when those when like just thousands of glow sticks in the air, it blew my mind. But Harry Hood picks up from the last version that we heard in this tour, August 8th, 1998, a very beautiful Harry Hood from Merriweather Post. Moves into a jam, and then that moves into the first Baby Elephant Walk. From 514 shows ago, 12/1/1992. Walk us through this gag. You were there, you watched it. What was it like? I've only seen pictures.
There's a thing over there, and like it's kind of where they had the big art tower the year before. But it's I don't honestly remember recognizing what it was, but they until it happened, and this thing it's an elephant, and it moves through the crowd like towards the exit. And it's huge and it's bizarre. It's just weird and silly. So I see this, and at first I'm just like, really? What? And then it just started laughing because it was hilarious. They're playing Baby Elephant Walk. This is a fucking elephant. This makes no sense. Perfect. It's exactly what Fish should do.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that like you've got this. You got Harry Hood. You got Harry Hood.
Harry Hood. And that was amazing. And then.
Okay. I want to be clear. I'm not complaining about this. I'm on your side. But like, you've got the most emotional peak in your catalog to end the festival on a high note, and instead, let's just diverge. We're not going to end Harry Hood, and we're going to go into this just bizarre art piece because I kind of wonder if it was just like either they were in on the joke the whole time, or if there was like a sense of how this would be something bigger than what it is. And in the end of it, you just have Fishman on stage with the trombone and this giant elephant walking.
The trombone is what makes it work, amazing. Of course.
Right.
And honestly, I love listening to it now. I don't even visualize what I experienced then so much as I actually think it works as a good, weird ass piece of music with the trombone kind of blaring through the thing. And like it stands up as kind of a little conceptual piece, but I dig it. And it doesn't hurt that I was there, but I don't think you have to have been there to kind of dig that music now. Weird.
I'm looking it up
Go
right
Fish.
now
Do
as we're talking, because I feel like, was this on yes, this song is featured in The Simpsons season 2 episode 5. Oh, yeah. Dancing Homer. This is the Dancing Homer song. I was trying to remember exactly where this was.
When he's going to the Isotopes games and dancing on the top of the dugout to get the audience going.
Moves to Capital City. It's one of my favorite Simpsons episodes of all time. ends in sadness. But it
Well,
baby elephant walk. It's
he
there.
shoots his shot. He gets his moment in the big show, and then goes back down.
There's a parallel in there with Fish ending the festival on this. But I cannot believe we talked through 13 hours worth of music here in a manner of 90 minutes. I greatly enjoyed this. I greatly enjoyed re-listening to the Lemonwheel. I was not planning on re-listening to the Lemonwheel in full over the last day and a half. If anyone knows anything about this show, it is that I feverishly plan out our episodes weeks in advance, and mainly because I get so nervous if I cannot listen to something in full. And so yesterday to today, listening to this entire festival was a complete joy. Any last thoughts that you have about the Lemonwheel?
Well, first of all, now you know how I do it. Is always cram.
It's cram.
I rely on what I already knew and then cram. Yeah, so overlooked festival, perhaps. Should it be? No. It's a little different. It doesn't have the same kind of high points as some of the others. And I think that's good. Like, you've got your Went Gin, but you've got your Lemonwheel Ghost. You've got your Lemonwheel 2001. You've got that Gumbo Sanity Tweezer thing that you should all be very familiar with. I'll never forget it. You've got a Divided Sky. Yes, there's lots of good Divided Skies. Aren't we lucky? Listen to this one. And then you have your Ambient Jam, which can definitely be taken out and listened to on its own at different times, and you might listen to the rest of the show. And should be. And it should also be released as a second LP of a 2 LP set that includes the Soundcheck Jams, because you should all listen to Soundcheck Jams too. I mentioned also that I was going to talk about the FM situation. So
yes, please add that.
If you're listening on re-listen, which is basically it's not released, so this is how your average person listens, unless you've got a good Shidden collection and you're listening to live tapes, which is admirable and worthwhile. The Soundcheck and the 16th, the final night, are FM recordings. They broadcast it. We taped it. Awesome. The 15th is a front of board recording, and it sounds pretty good. Mm-hmm. It's a good tape. We need and deserve proper, non-FM compressed soundboards of these shows. I couldn't help but listen to that tweezer, for example, and hear phasing in the front of board tape. I enjoyed hearing some of the audience noise and stuff in the front of board tape. And I want to hear what Trey's tone really sounds like.
The way you hear it on the soundboards.
What the ambient jam really sounds like on the soundboard. I appreciate a good audience tape, but I think that we would all be well served by an official release of these soundboards, Kevin Shapiro. Please, sir. Thank you.
I would go even a step further and say that 1998 and 99 are the 2 years that are most benefited by soundboards. Just the style of play from those 2 years, it's so nuanced. It's so subtle.
Dynamics are substantial through these. And we hear that in earlier years, but
it's not like 98
years. Yeah, no. Dynamics are
like massive. Perfect example.
And a taper's got to, either drive their levels, or you're going to have parts where it's either because if they set their levels conservatively, then the quiet bits are going to be too quiet. They set their levels high, the hot bits might be too hot. If they're not driving riding the meters the whole time, you're going to have trouble with your tapes. So there's a little taper perspective. But
the best example I can provide is the 11/11/98 show from Grand Rapids that was released. That show I remember getting the audience tape of and being told this Haley's is what you have to hear. And it's an amazing Haley's. and I think I listened to that, maybe listened to bits and pieces of the other show, of the other parts of the show, but didn't really dive in. And years later, they released it officially on Soundboard, and suddenly, what do I hear? Oh my god! The middle part of this gumbo is some of the most incredible music I've ever heard. Sirens and sounds that like you just can't pick up on the audience tape. Absolutely nothing against. Like I'm right there with you. I prefer to listen to my December 97 shows in audience quality because like the way that those tapers capture the room is just stunning. But something about the 98 sound needs a soundboard. So I'm right there with you. We need this released.
Especially outdoor shows. I mean, there are good front of board tapes clearly, and they're pretty good. But I need that contrast, man. I want to hear Trey's rawest tone.
That's what we need. That's what we need. Man.
All right. So I'm going to go listen to Beans, Country Sessions.
We will be back on Wednesday, but not at this time. I want to tell everyone out there who's listening, who's hanging, we'll be back Wednesday. And starting Wednesday, we will not have a normal HFPod episode until, I believe, until
September sometime.
No, it is August 17th when we have a little bit of a break between the Alpine Run and the Dix Run. So lots and lots of 2022 action coming at you. There's a chance we might do something on August 10th. We'll keep you posted on that. But August 17th is going to be our first, as of right now, our first episode to return to this time and place. Maybe August 10th. We'll see, because there's no Tuesday night show that week, but we got to see.
Hey, Brian, what time can people find us going forward then after you went while Fish is on tour?
People can find us at 1 p.m. Eastern every day after Fish shows. So this week we've got Tuesday, Wednesday at the Man. You can find us Wednesday, Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. We got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Bethel and Hartford. You can find us Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And you can find us on Sunday doing a pre-show hang that we'll be posting a link to here shortly. Pre-show hang will be back. Very excited about that.
I got to remember that because I want to be here for it.
You got to be there for it. I got to send out a link. I got to do that. We also want to let you know, last thing before we go here, the dudes over at Wook Plus, we've had them on. They're going to be on for one of the Philly recaps here this week. They do Wook Plus Live on Wednesday evenings. Or excuse me, sorry. They do The Lot Wednesdays prior to the show, and then they do the post-show, The Lot, at 15 minutes after the band goes off stage. So keep an eye out for that. We've done a lot. Here.
As Ben Goodrich says, that's a lot of podcasts.
It's a lot of podcasts. Somebody's got to do it, though. It's a lot. There's a lot to talk about. We'll be back Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern to talk about night one at the Man. Until then, go listen to some Lemonwheel, and we'll talk with you all soon.
See ya.